What's up, guys? How's everybody doing? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a new series. This is a series I'd like to call a comparison series, and we're gonna ask the age-old question, what is better, modern figures or vintage figures? It's something I've really been contemplating a lot lately in my collecting story, history, whatever you want to call it. Frustration has mounted for several years now in modern collecting, and that has resulted in a very piqued interest and rise to vintage collecting. So that's kind of where I'm at personally. I'm going to give you guys 4 categories, and we're going to go over pros and cons, which may or may not be better for each category in this video. So what are our 4 categories? Well, we've got price. I think we know where that's going to go. Maybe we don't. We'll see. We've got availability. We've got nostalgia. That's a big one. That could go either way. And then, of course, we have quality. So those are going to be the 4 main talking points we're going to go over in this video. I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples. Also going to shoot up a couple of pictures on figures I don't have that I've taken listings from on eBay and Mercari. Give you guys an idea of where prices are on certain modern and vintage figures. So let's get to it. Let's go ahead and get started with price. And this is going to be a doozy, I think. All right, it's no secret that price is a huge part of every toy collector's thing, history, whatever. The price matters. Let's say that the price matters. How much do I want to pay for something? How much do I need to pay for something if it's rare new, if it's rare vintage? There's a lot of factors that go into price. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys some examples. We'll throw a couple of prices up as we show these. Let's start with the elephant in the room, which is Star Wars Black Series. An average Star Wars Black Series figure, like this piece of shit right here. This is the worst figure that Black Series has come out with this year, by the way. This is a $24.99 figure, and in some instances, if you look on Amazon, $26.99 for certain Black Series figures. The Magna Guard comes to mind. $26.99, and I've watched multiple reviews, that's a horrible figure. So that's what we're looking at. This, of course, is a 6-inch figure. The detail's not great. It's pretty flat, as I've mentioned in previous videos. The articulation's okay, and yeah, it's okay. So $24.99 is what we're paying for a Black Series figure. Let's take a look at TVC, since we're on modern figures. TVC, this is a disgusting price for this thing. This thing will set you back $27.99. Never on God's green earth would I pay $27.99 for this. I paid $13 for this, and I'm still feeling a little nauseous about it. So that's where we're at. We're at $27.99, $16.99 for the vintage collection. When it comes to deluxe and basics, we're at $24 to $26.99 when it comes to Black Series. So that's kind of crazy. So what are we looking at in terms of vintage? Well, vintage, of course, there's not as much intricacy to them. There's not as much detail. But if you're willing to go with just price as a whole, let's take a look at Star Wars. Star Wars, let me get you some comparisons. Now, of course, this is an older figure. This is a vintage, and I say it's vintage because it's over 20 years old. Vintage Qui-Gon Jinn. I paid $4.50 for this. Still has pretty decent detail, has decent articulation. I mean, holds his lightsaber with 2 hands, but he is 3 3/4 inch. So, you know, for a figure like this, you can get this pretty cheap. You would be looking at getting about 4 to 5 of these for the price of 1 Black Series. So where's the value? We used to say that a lot on this channel. Where's the value? Is the value in a more detailed, highly articulated figure? Is the value in a pretty good figure that still has a decent likeness? And you can get more of them. And it still hits the nostalgia points too. So really that's the question. Where is the value? But if we go back even further in time and we take a look at actual vintage Star Wars, 1983, Return of the Jedi, this guy actually set me back $25. Bib Fortuna, but he is complete. He has no scrapes, no scuffs, no anything like that. So we're looking at $25. and we're looking at $25. It's really going to be a personal preference. We're not really trying to split the atom here and say, I think you should do this instead of this, or you should do this instead of this. It's not really the point of the video is. The point is to kind of give you an idea of where you might be on this subject. So there you go, $25, $25. What say you? Okay, so the next topic is availability. I think Modern's probably got this one in the bag. The availability of, Star Wars Black Series, anything Modern, new Transformers. I'll give you an example here. A new Transformer that's super easy to find. That's a wonderful figure. That's Braun. I've seen him multiple times. He is $25, so keep that in mind. But I've seen him multiple, 3 or 4 deep in Walmart, and that's Walmart. So availability, yes. But when it comes to availability on, say, this, I don't think this is a very readily available figure. Of course, this is the retro, but we're gonna pretend like it's the vintage. The vintage, to find it in this kind of condition would be very difficult. And this is Hound, of course. So again, the availability, I think that's always probably gonna go to Modern, just because they're mass produced nowadays. If you are one of those collectors that wants your vintage figures in perfect and mint condition, it's going to be tough to get something like this, and you're going to pay more for it. However, if you're a Modern collector, you want something that kind of looks the way you always wanted it to as a kid, kind of like what I am. That's what drew me to this figure and drew me to this line. I think Modern has definitely got an availability factor. And there's always going to be those figures that come down the line where everybody's after it. It's the gotta have it now mentality, but if you wait it out, you're definitely going to be able to get a hold of it. So for this one, for me, in my opinion, I think Modern takes it in terms of availability. Okay, so the next one, again, I think it's a little bit of a doozy when it comes to nostalgia. Nostalgia is one of those things that really drives all of us as collectors, as toy hunters, and anybody who just loves toys. I'm finding more and more that when I first started collecting, if I saw something like this, it would be nostalgic to me. And it still is. This is a very nostalgic figure. This Leo is one of my absolute favorite, if not my favorite in my collection, but it is a new figure. It's a newer figure. It's in the last 5 years, so it's a Modern figure. It's a $30 Modern figure, but it's a tremendous figure, a very well done figure. But what I've come to realize since the last couple years collecting vintage and things like that, a figure like this, not only is it nostalgic, but it has a lot of memories and a lot of emotions tied to it too, where you can kind of remember when you got it as a kid, the time you got it. I remember I got this Christmas 1988 with my brother. I think it was me or my brother, one of us got it. And I've been searching for a mint one for the last year or so, and finally got one the other day. But this thing had even more effect on me and more nostalgia on me than this one did, even though I absolutely love this figure and I think he's fantastic. There is just something about a figure being able to trigger emotion and those kind of feelings you got when you were a kid on Christmas morning, whether Santa brought it to you or whatever it was, that really just do it. And I'm really gonna give this one, in my opinion, I'm gonna give this one to vintage, because I just don't think that Modern is able to replicate those kind of emotions, nostalgic feel, and memories that a vintage figure you had or even didn't have as a kid, and now as an adult you can get. There's numerous figures that I have now that I didn't have as a kid, so it's almost like going back in time and getting the ones I never got. So, for me, vintage wins this round. Okay, last topic. We're going to talk about quality, and quality is a problem that Modern has had for a while. Black Series has problems with it. Marvel Legends has problems with it. DC, Todd McFarlane, as much as everybody loves him, there's definitely quality issues with his figures nowadays. And I think it's a lost art for quality to be, really taking care of the QC issues on a lot of these figures, whether it be paint, whether it be sculpt, whatever it is really become unfortunate. I'm going to go back to this jack-off Ezra. I'm sorry, I'm being nasty, but I hate this figure. The quality's not there. As you can see, there's some, issues right here. I have no idea what's going on with this waist joint. I mean, it just, to me, it doesn't feel great. The legs are loose. We just don't get the quality that we had back in the day. You know, we can go ahead and take a look again. This figure's kind of stood the test of time. This is a 1988 Ghostbusters figure that I got at Dallas Vintage Toys. It still works absolutely wonderfully. It is a hard plastic. You can kind of hear it. Hard plastic. The only real issue with this figure back in the day is his tie would break. But he didn't, you know, he has solid joints. Now, I don't want to sit here and say that every vintage figure is going to be like this, because that would be completely wrong. We all know about the O-ring with G.I. Joes. We all know that it can take a long time to find a vintage figure that has tight joints and everything else. But we're talking about when it came out, back in 1982, when that G.I. Joe came out. Was that quality better than this piece of junk? I'm going to go with yes. Another good example would be Muckman once again. This is a harder plastic. This is not a plastic that you can bend, kind of like on certain areas with old Ezra here. I can't break this plastic. I can't snap, you know, we could break him at the joints, obviously. But I think the plastic quality is better. I think there was a little bit more care on QC and quality and what these companies were dishing out in terms of product back in the day. I think now, since these are so massively produced, I think there's just not a lot of care anymore. Paint apps are constantly an issue. Figures coming in packaging broken into pieces. I've heard multiple reports of this figure missing pieces or coming in actual pieces, hands broken off, whatever it might be. And of course that happened back in the day, but it seems to be a lot more consistent nowadays. So quality, again, in my opinion, I think I'm going to have to give it to vintage. Obviously, it's a slippery slope when you got to go company by company. So that's my opinion. We're going to give that one to vintage. All right, so this is probably a controversial video. Okay, again, my opinion. So make yours known. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, I'm a little harder on modern nowadays because of collecting vintage, because I've seen what we had as kids. I've seen what has happened back in the 80s. And now, yeah, it doesn't feel the same. You know, you start getting a hold of vintage figures and these new ones kind of lose their luster a little bit. I think the biggest thing that modern's got going for it is that it's now got to the point where the detail is everything that you wanted when you were a kid, when you had it in your hand and it didn't quite match up to what was in the cartoon or in the movie. Now, prime example, we have that. And I think that's a good thing about modern. But as usual, I think with both, you need to be picky. You need to be picky. You need to go for what you like. Collect what you like. That's really the main thing. I'm definitely not trying to change anybody's minds in this video. I just think it's a good topic of conversation. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. So you guys get in the comments. Let me know what you think. Tell me if I'm crazy. I'm not, but tell me if I am. That's cool. It's all good. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a comment, drop a like, and I will see you guys on the next one.